Good evening and welcome to Economics Unbound. Tonight we talk about the challenges of increasing women's participation in the economy and closing the gender gaps in the world of work. Now, Nana, I really suspect that when you voted for the Women's Party, it was called Women's Forward. Hey.
Welcome to our viewers. My vote is my secret. But yes, Tandeka, in homes, in private estates, women work hard and men generally inherit. This is across social classes, even though class itself is fundamentally tied up with inequality. Not all economic inequalities are about class. Consider the case of inequality caused by a person's gender.
Yes, Nana. What makes inequality even crystallize more is the glaring disadvantages that endure over time in a way that extends beyond specific transactions like perhaps a single woman's empowerment deal. But Nana, we have to be careful to always back up our statements with statistics and facts that give us a rich and accurate picture of what effects race, class and gender have on the South African economy.
The 2017 report by Pulse of the People shows that women in South Africa earn 27% less than their male counterparts. The gender pay gap is even wider among top earners, where men earn as much as 39% more than women at the same level. The difference between earnings of women is explained by the difference in hours worked. The latest gender report by Stats SA shows that male employees tend to work more hours than female employees. It further shows that men spend 254 minutes per day doing paid work and 102 minutes doing unpaid work, while women spend 155 minutes doing paid work and 253 minutes on unpaid work, such as child-rearing activities, hence the fewer in-office working hours. This unpaid work can erode the lifetime earnings, savings potential of women and their ability to maintain a comfortable standard of living throughout retirement. This means women need to save more of their earnings than men. Although a common rule of thumb is to put aside 15% of pre-tax earnings for retirement, women should ideally be aiming for closer to 20%. This results in significantly less take-home pay for women. Meanwhile, the recent living conditions survey by Stats SA already shows that 7 out of every 10 households headed by females live in poverty, compared to 6 out of every 10 households headed by males. This shows that women should play a more active role in their financial planning instead of leaving this to their partners, especially given that they need to save more than their partners.
TANS, according to UN Women, an agency of the United Nations, women's economic empowerment includes women's ability to participate equally in existing markets, their access to and control over productive resources, access to decent work, control over their own time, lives and bodies, and increased voice, agency and meaningful participation in economic decision-making at all levels, from the household to international institutions.
Well, in fact, Nana, the United Nations says empowering women in the economy and closing those gender gaps in the world of work is key to achieving the Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. Now, think about Goal 5, to achieve gender equality, or even Goal 8, to promote full productive employment and decent work for all. Now, I've been thinking about Goal 1 on ending poverty, or Goal 2, which is related to Goal 1, on ensuring food security for all. Think about Goal 3, everyone out there, on ensuring health and development, and Goal 10, on reducing inequality. Now, I'm joined in the studio by STRU Movement's social analyst, Molebogeng Rapetswa, and Menzi Vilakazi, who is an attorney at Menzi Vilakazi Attorneys. Good evening and welcome to the SABC, and thanks for joining us.
Evening, Tandeka.
Now, you've seen those statistics. Something is wrong in our society, and the labors and the efforts of women are unrewarded. Now, to whom do the rewards of those labors go? To whom does women's unpaid work go?
Look, I mean, it is frightening. The statistics say that men earn as far as 27% greater than women do at the workplace. However, when we look at our legislation, of course it is something that does not happen overnight, but I think that there is steps to be taken. Recently, in 2014, there has been amendments to the Employment Equity Act. One might cringe to say that why did it take 20 years for it to actually be amended to reflect issues of equal pay for equal work of equal value. However, like I say, that it's something that happens over time.
But let me rephrase my question again. Labor is capital. So to whom does the capital that should be going to women, to whom does it go? Does it go to the companies, the corporations, and then or to super profits, thus increasing inequality? To whom does this unpaid work of women go? The money involved. Who does it?
Well, look, I mean, if the stats tell us that the gap is that male earns 27% more, then I think the direction in which it is headed is it goes to the profits, and the one that takes the cream on the cake first is the male, and then it filters down to the female. So to answer your question, I think the stats would reflect that firstly it goes to the broader market of the profits, then it filters down to the male before it gets to the females.
And so it acts as a boon to the economy. It's a gift that women would rather not gift. They would rather have the money, but because of the super exploitation of women, this is the money of women goes back into the economy. So women are giving the fruits of their labor back into the economy, and yet this goes unrewarded. How can legislation help? How can policy help?
In this regard, what I touched on earlier on relates to the legislation, to say that we have our Employment Equity Act 55 of 1998, which has advised that it has recently been amended as recent as 2014, which then touches on equal pay for equal work of equal value, which basically means that if we are doing work which is the same work or strikingly similar, or work which is of equal value, we ought to be remunerated and within the same footing. Of course, there is that of qualifications, experience, and. Those then lead to a fair discrimination in that regard. However, if we both start on equal footing, then with regards to the remuneration, it ought to be the same. As also highlighted earlier on, that it only happened now in 2014, one would think that why was it not done all these years? It's 20 years later into the democracy.
And we're pretty progressive as a country in terms of enacting gender-friendly and progressive legislation. It's a marvel that we took so long. But please weigh in, ma'am. I'd like to know, what is your take on the surplus labor that women are giving free of charge to the economy, and what can be done about it?
I think firstly I would like to appreciate the fact that we are getting to that space where we can almost quantify it or acknowledge it. And my comments normally are not so much based on the resonant sense, because I don't think we can equate the value that women bring to society. Jokingly earlier on today, I think I was talking to my daughter and I said, in essence, we get into the space of economy from a point of conception, really. We start being a game player somehow, adding value. We are responsible for the human resources, just as women. At any scale, the very men that seem to be benefiting benefiting more or higher than we do, they are our product in essence. So our role
So
in
women
this
are the
space,
first teachers, the first nurturers, the first developers
Absolutely.
of human resources.
we start giving them time from nature and from the training, just their capability, that the very first years of their lives before they can say we are men.
But in patriarchal society, the education of women, the formal education of women, is taken less seriously than the education of men.
That is true, and I think this is where my issue comes. By the way, we are the Stru movement, not the STRU.
Oh, the
so
Stru
we stand
movement.
for the truth. If we're to talk about this as truthfully as possible, my concern or our issues are, it's probably time, not even probably, it's about time we write our own script as women. It's about time we say exactly what this means for us and to us, more so because we are occupying these positions now more, and we are more in a position or in a better position to start informing policy from based on our experiences, not so much from what the very patriarchal or the patriarchy says about our situations and circumstances. Men are still determining what needs to happen. Where are we? Yet we are occupying these positions now. And not only from a position perspective, we are the employers as well. And what we found is in the very working environment, where we're supposed to be implementers of these policies, if you were to look at stats just in HR as practitioners, it's mostly women who are leading in some of these positions as well. And what are we doing to implement? What are we doing to make sure that there's this change? How considerate are we? Should you go on a maternity leave, for instance? We have work experiences, myself in particular, where you'd go to a maternity leave or you get a call that your child is sick. We are the ones that don't respond as well as we should to the very policies that males probably, and some women or most women have contributed to. We are the ones who are not upholders of. So we even get into these spaces and posture as men.
Yeah.
We don't go in and be feminine about this, be woman-like, be considerate, have an early childhood development site on in a workplace to help me contribute more. And the fact that I have so many roles to answer to, so many titles to answer to. As a woman, I answer to mother, I answer to aunt, I answer to caregiver, I answer to everything. How responsive are we as women, or how are we influencing the very workspaces for other women?
It's important that you are mentioning what do we as women do once we have the power to effect change. I was speaking to some women in the financial services sector, which tends to be a bit conservative. I was asking them whether they have thought of designing financial services products that are specific to women, whether they would consider the credit profiles of women in a gender-sensitive, context-sensitive way, and use different instruments for determining the credit of poor women, like banks like the Grameen Bank of India, of Bangladesh rather, would do. So why is it that we as women tend not to instrumentalize our power, to make it useful to women and for our own emancipation?
We honestly need a redress of sorts. We need to learn to firstly re-identify ourselves and reposition ourselves generally. And I think this is where the challenges are, because when you go into your workplace and you talk to most women, you find that in most instances we complain about our supervisors who happen to be fellow women, who are not so considerate and understanding. So even getting to the point of designing any system, we tend to remove ourselves from a situation as women, that which we need to be inputting to its change, basically. And that has become the biggest challenge, I think. We fail to represent ourselves as women.
Don't you think that perhaps women, because we are unaccustomed to positions of power, we are ambivalent about power? We've got very few positive role models, and therefore we mimic men in roles of authority.
I think it's a fallacy that we probably mimicking men, yes, but the fallacy would be that there are no role models. I think they are there. but they're under a lot of scrutiny instead. We wear glass, we perceive femininity as a weakness rather than as a strength. So it's more how we are socialized. We more picking up from where men left off in defining who we are and our roles. We are not stepping up to say, this is what it means to be a woman, this is who I am. We've seen even in the social media spaces or just the media spaces where our responses are more sexualized. I think we get more credit in that perspective rather than in business and anywhere else. So how we are perceived or viewed, we're more responding about ourselves, to ourselves on such issues that are more physical, not on the quality of our lives. Because even if I'm to be employed, if a policy is to change, just to cite an example, I think it was about 2004 when I worked for one department, and I had just given birth. There's an indaba going away, and at that point I was like, I'm breastfeeding, and policy had to change instantly to say henceforth, even if we go into a postbarat, all women with children under the age of 3, they can come with. And that stopped then, if I'm not mistaken. I don't remember having the same instance happening. So when you leave, there's no continuity of making sure that women are considered and included in that particular sense.
Mr. Vilakazi, we've got the last word. We are running out of time. Weigh in on this discussion about how workplaces can best change to accommodate women.
Look, I think as far as workplaces is concerned, legislation is there. Now, with also once again the amendments of 2014, it is seen whereby if a woman was aggrieved and was to refer a matter to CCMA or relevant bargaining council, CCMA only had jurisdiction for conciliation, and then it was a long journey to Labour Court. Now, from the day that one launches a matter at Labour Court, for it to see its day before a judge would have at minimum taken a year. Now you are facing a lady who still needs to wake up on a daily basis, needs to present themselves at that workplace, is complaining about the same supervisor that they are reporting to. However, with the recent amendment under section, I think it's 10 sub 4 of the Employment Equity, it then says that the CCMA is now granted jurisdiction in which they could arbitrate on such matters. So that's a quicker dispute resolution to say that the process to follow: lodge your grievance. In the event that the grievance is then you're not satisfied, then you have 6 months in which to approach the CCMA, and within a space of about 3 months you'll get genuine
Well,
award.
talking about legal matters, we'll be returning to discuss legal matters and women after the break.